Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Behind every glory, there is a story. Iasimwe is my name. Today, I got a story from a friend of mine. She texted me about this sad story, and I thought I would share it with you. So, many years ago in 1950 or so years, there lived a young lady from Kabale who got married to a certain man in the village of Ntungamo. No, actually, Ntungamo is not a village; it is a district. Who got married in a district of Ntungamo in a village called Rahim. And obviously, she gave birth to many children since she was a very young girl and very fertile. You know, Bachiga lady are known for being very fertile in Uganda. That is a fact. It's not something we can debate about. So when she got married, she gave birth to around 13 children. So her passion in life, or like her goal in life, was to make sure that all her children go to school. Now she got married to a man who did not value education. So what she did was she worked so hard because her husband was a peasant. He really didn't have enough money. Okay, he really didn't have money. He didn't have land. He only had a piece of land which he had inherited from his father, where he had put his grandson house and a small matoke plantation, because in Uganda, matoke is one of the main foods that we have. So literally the man was very poor and he didn't have land. And what the lady did, she used to go to neighboring villages and rent out many pieces of land and plant her own crops, because she did not have enough land of her own. So all she could do was go. In so doing, she managed to raise some good amount of money to take care of her family. But remember, she was in a village where men were so conservative, and they could like oppose his husband as to why he is allowing the wife the school fees for the kids, and were telling the husband that maybe he's not man enough. But the man didn't care because her wife was hardworking, so he let it be. For the lady kept on pushing with the support of her husband. This was only moral support, like seriously. The man did not help this lady in all her hassles to raise money to pay for school fees for her children. And Makiushi was the only lady in that village who was paying school fees for her children. So that village had only one primary school where most of the children went, but basically mostly boys, because by then they did not believe in girl child education. Boys were given the highest priority to go to school. Only girls were trained for marriage. Actually, that is why up to date Uganda has the best wives in the world. I am not debating about that. So basically, she used to walk miles and miles to go and rent land and plant crops to get money. She would walk miles and miles to sell sugarcane in different markets. You know, in villages there are always those market days. For example, like on a Saturday it could be like in this village, in another Saturday it could be in another village. So basically that's what she would do. Throughout the week she would go dig. Then on weekends she would go and look for sugarcane, look for maize. She would roast the maize, and she would also roast the sweet potatoes and go and sell during the market days. And she would walk miles. She had no bicycle, and by then there were no border borders, there were no cars. Even if they were there, they were only for the rich. And she was not. She managed to educate most of her kids up to primary level, that is from P1 to P7. So but unfortunately during that period she lost most of her children to HIV, because by then that was like the biggest pandemic that hit Uganda. most people died of that disease, and usually they thought it was because of witchcraft, but no, it was, and it is still is, a sexually transmitted disease. So most of her kids died, and her husband died too. So she remained a widow, and she remained with only two children, a boy and a girl. So the girl did not go beyond primary level. She did not go to secondary. She decided to get married. So now this lady remained with only one son and her grandkids from her children who had passed on due to HIV pandemic. So after this boy had finished primary, she really had to take her son to school. But remember, in this village there was no secondary school, and the nearest school was Montiela. Those of you who know Montiela, it is not a very cheap school. It is a very expensive school, and talk of, like, in the 60s, it was like the only school in Ntungamo, and it was the best school. Only the rich people would take their children to school. Only the Bahima who had cows and who would sell milk are the ones who really had enough money to take their children to that school. But this lady sacrificed her life, and she worked very, very hard, walked long distances to make sure that her son goes to school. She would, like, work in people's gardens, work in her own garden. She would buy school requirements and for her child. By the time he goes to school, that boy lacked nothing. He lacked nothing at all. So she would buy the school requirements, all of them, and she would make sure that she would go with the school fees of her son on the first day she takes him to school. She would carry his suitcase on her head. You know those metallic suitcases, those blue and green, they are metallic. I don't know if you know them, but they are metallic and they are very heavy. So she would carry them and go with her son to Montiela, that school. No, she would, yeah. So she would carry the suitcase of her son and walk miles and miles and miles to the main road, where she would get a vehicle to Ntali High School. And she would go, not the days of coming back from school, and still walk barefoot to the child's school. Mark, that was the time when there were no roads which were developed. She would pass through the bush, she would pass through the hills and the valleys, she would jump like swamps, and so basically the transportation system was very poor and very dangerous for a lady to walk with her son, only the two of them. But she did that against all the odds. She wanted her child to get the best education he would get, and she managed, because school. So after secondary school, the boy went to Makerere University, and he did a very good course. By then it was political science. By then political science had not been scrapped off the curriculum, so he did political science and he graduated, and he was the only boy in his village who had a degree. Like, in that entire village, he was the only man, or he was the only boy who had a degree and who had been educated by a woman, a single woman. And that was like a very inspiring story for everybody. And since then, women, they borrowed a leaf from this lady, and they also started working very hard to make sure that their children went to school, because by then it's only the men who used to take children to school, and when the men stopped, like, sending their children to school, the ladies would do nothing. But because of this woman's effort, other women copied from her, and they also started working very hard to make sure that where the men stop, that is where they will start. So they started working hard to make sure that their children also can go to school. So she was such a very good lady and everybody loved her. But most of the people laughed at her because they were like, you're working very hard, but we are sure this child, the boy child, will forget about you. Actually, most people are always scared that when boy children finish education or when they get jobs, they don't usually remember their parents, and unfortunately that's how it was.